Okay, so I'm going to play Ella doing the intro. Okay,
Right.
here we go.
Hi, I am Ella. Welcome to a special episode of the podcast where we will try to guess which answer belongs to which high five staff member. The two questions we asked were 1. Name a memorable moment while working at High Five. And 2. Name a guilty pleasure.
Do you know what a guilty pleasure is, me?
No.
So a guilty pleasure is something like a TV show or a movie that you would be embarrassed to tell people that you watch. Something that you enjoy, but you'd feel a little embarrassed about telling people. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Good luck.
Okay, so there we go. That's the intro. So the aim of this is we're going to go through the entire responses that were sent to us by the High Five staff members. There are 25 of them. On your score sheet, if you are playing along, and I encourage you to look in the description of this episode, you can download your own score sheet. If you look at the score sheet, you'll see there is the names of the staff are listed up top, and then you've got numbers 1 to 25. Your task is to correctly identify which staff member belongs to which number. And we're going to say those numbers as we go through these statements, all the way through to 25. So there's a lot. I appreciate you listening to this, and hopefully you'll learn something about us as staff. You're going to hear myself, and you're also going to hear a special guest, because this is not a good episode if it's not got my good colleague Lisa for a me, Lisa, you, and myself and Lisa episode.
Let me stop you right there, Phil. It's actually another episode of the podcast featuring, I can't even do it, never mind.
Featuring myself and Lisa? No, myself and Phil.
Someone will know how we usually do it. It's been a while, but I'm back.
You're back. Okay, and I've chosen Lisa because Lisa has a track record of being able to tell jokes and statements without giggling.
Said nobody ever.
So the hope is that as we read these, if she ends up reading her own, she will not give away that it's her. But we'll go through. We'll see. We're going to go through this list, and once again, your aim is to identify which of these statements belongs to which staff member, and we will be saying both the memorable moment and then the guilty pleasure. And then once you've heard both, you'll have the information to maybe give your guess. You may have to listen to this twice, so prepare yourself. Here we go. So I'm going to read number 1. The number 1 memorable moment. In the hazy dusk, surrounded by hungry mosquitoes and the shadow of trees, we are on a search for the ultimate edible treasure in the woods, a hidden shopping bag full of s'mores supplies for the evening's campfire. The trail has been conveniently marked by the scent of an overripe onion. Therefore, the high schoolers, my colleague, and I stumble our way through the woods, smelling every tree trunk and exclaiming when we think we've found the next smelly tree on the invisible path through the forest. In the end, we did find the treasure, and it was worth every second of laughter and ridiculousness. Lisa's already laughing. I don't know. I can honestly say, and I want to add this. Even though I'm like the host of this game show format, I don't know the answers. I specifically made sure that I did not know who belonged to which person.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know this. Although I do know I have done this similar thing at Outdoor Red.
There's one word in here that gives me a clue as to who it could be, but we will see what gets revealed.
I will say, out of probably all of them, this is the most descriptive story-like telling.
No, it's like you starting with the story time.
A lot of people just put one sentence. This one was definitely, I did say, the more detail, the better, and they went full detail.
Okay, what's the guilty pleasure for this person?
Guilty pleasure is, I turn on the dryer even when clothes are dry right before I fold them, so I can feel all cozy when putting laundry away. And then it says, sorry, environment.
Beautiful.
I will admit to not doing similar, but I do experience it greater joy when it's hot, when it's straight out than if it's sat for a while.
Yeah. So you're saying that's not you that wrote that?
It could be me.
This could all be like some super mega ruse that you're playing.
Yeah, I'm playing
I also
double.
Don't do that, but now it's a great idea. I might start doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, just we'll say that every single one is us. And
Number
that way,
two.
Okay, number two.
Number two, here's the memorable moment. Helping out EOL, belaying Keene Middle School sixth graders during their visit to High Five in the spring of 2022. Period. That's it. And moving on to the guilty pleasure, I revisit and play Pokemon Blue or Yellow on my Game Boy Color at least once or twice a year.
There's clues because of Pokemon and EOL, but I'm unsure about the memorable moment, why one person would have put that. But okay, number three. The memorable moment is walking up the hill with a fifth grade class from Simon's school. A student said to me, "I'm just going to hold your hand until we get to the top of the hill. Okay? What's your name again?" I like the order of which they've said that.
So cute.
Yeah, it's super cute. And then the guilty pleasure is I am very current in all things related to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
I don't know what's so guilty about that pleasure, but everybody has their own authentic answer.
Yeah. I like it. We're going to get to it later, but someone does say, I don't find guilty pleasures. I'm not guilty about any of these, which I thought was...
Yeah, that's refreshing. And I like how you had to define guilty pleasure for Ella.
Yeah,
I like
she had
that she
no
doesn't
idea.
know that concept yet. Yeah. Okay, number four, memorable moment. The High Five Symposium or a jam-packed lunch table with some funny stories and Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
What? When was Ben & Jerry's ice cream at a symposium?
We have to stop everything and find out where
everything.
were we for the Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
What? I think I've been to the last 10 or 11 of these.
But it does say High Five Symposium or a jam-packed lunch table, because remember when you weren't around there, well, that's different. Sorry, I'm trying to keep it short. There was an unexpected massive delivery of Ben & Jerry's to the office a couple weeks ago. But here is this person's guilty pleasure. I have seen the Dirty Heads perform live about 15 times.
Hey, that's a real fan there.
There's a lot of bands with the word head. We could go on a tangent. Big Head Todd, Radiohead, Talking Heads. Anyway, I've seen the Dirty Heads perform live 15 times.
Okay.
All right, Phil, let's kick it to you for number 5.
Number 5. My most memorable moment at High Five happened during EOL summer on the challenge course in the evening. The participants had just learned how to belay earlier that day, and we were working on the pamper pole. As they gained confidence, they started asking if they could belay. One participant, Jack, stepped up to belay, and the look on his face when his climber jumped and successfully grabbed the trapeze bar was unforgettable. The pure excitement and joy he felt in that moment captured everything I love about High Five, watching people push themselves, support each other, and celebrate their growth together. That's someone who wrote their answer with the intention of like a real positive high five message rather than a joke, like a lot of people sometimes have done, like, oh, something that's funny. That's a really good, memorable moment. And their guilty pleasure, this is the reference I made before. So this one says, I'm not very guilty about my pleasures, but I would have to say I love reality TV, and Love Island UK is the best. I have watched none of those. I mean, I have watched every single episode. Forgot that. All right. Yep. Next.
Yeah. I mean, that moment when you do successfully belay somebody, that's a wonderful moment. And I've been doing that for many, many years, and it's still a wonderful moment. Okay. Number 6, memorable moment. My most memorable moment was during my onboarding process. I attended a Beyond Basics workshop, and during lunch, we dummy locked the shed per usual. However, upon return, someone had found their way in there and locked the door from the inside. Approaching the shed, myself and other staff members jested that someone else from our department was inside trying to pull a prank on us. This was not the case. In fact, it was a random person who had donned some of the climbing gear and equipment in a non-traditional fashion. This interaction was certainly not anticipated by anyone and threw a little curveball. As I recall, Phil, you and I were accused of, everyone assumed it was you or me in the shed.
And just to add the other clarification, everyone thought it was you.
Or you.
No, I think they just specifically said, Lisa's in the shed.
Okay, and this person's guilty pleasure? Bachelor in Paradise, which for anyone who doesn't know is another reality TV franchise, which is a little bit of a theme so far, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Number 7. Working with the Horizons and Bridges students on the challenge course. Now, if I'm correct, Horizons and Bridges students are special ed students, correct? Okay. And their guilty pleasure is the song Untouched by the Veronicas.
Okay. Great. All right. Number 8. Buckle up. Here we go.
Yeah, this is a long one.
This person's memory. The challenge course covers more area than I realized. It was an internally rough and stressful hour, and I was helping to bring things up to the challenge course for a program. I got lost on the trails. I couldn't find my way out. I started running and sweating and running and sweating. I was dying that I was taking so long. Actually, I've gotten lost a few times, but this time was the worst because there was a group that had been waiting for me for about 15 minutes. So embarrassing. The first part of this day was even more stressful. I volunteered to drive a person with mobility challenges up to the course. I thought I was supposed to drive up to the cabins. So I drove up to the cabins and helped the person get into a wheelchair and pushed him through the rocky and rutty woods and up the steep hill. A bumpy nightmare, but we made it. Next, I was asked to bring food up to the course. I got back in the car, tried driving it up on the trail, not a road. I finally realized that my car would not go another foot, so I got out and ran the food up. When I got back to my car, I was afraid to back down, so I tried to turn around. No luck. I got myself wedged between 2 trees, less than 1 inch on either side. I had to be rescued by Ian and Jamie, who expertly towed me out with ropes. Again, so embarrassing. I tried to hide these ditzy things from my coworkers at High Five. You may not want to use the story above because then people will know it was me, question mark. I love it so much. Okay, let's move on to this person's guilty pleasure. I love finding split ends in my hair and then splitting them apart. It's so satisfying. Once, as a birthday gift, I got a box. In the box were strands of hair, all with ends to split. Gross, I know, but at least the hair was taken from my hairbrush. Sometimes still I run my fingers through my hair, hoping pieces come out so I can snap them and create ends that split. Not a good habit because I don't have hair to spare. That was number 8. I'm
Number
getting
8
so
was
many
epic.
ideas for new things to try.
Okay. Number 9. Seeing Chris Damboys, who's our director of training, barely fitting on and riding a little kid's bike that the Greenwich Girls swim team built during their retreat at High Five. And I have pictures to prove it. Those will be shared at some point. And then the guilty pleasure is just can't say no to a Drake's Cakes yodel. I have no idea what that is. That would reveal that it's not me, but I mean, I definitely know it's what it is, but I'm also going to ask, what is that?
I believe Drake's Cakes Yodel are like the kind of cupcakes or baked goods that you find prepackaged at like a Cumberland Farms.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
Does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 10, memorable moment. One of my favorite days at High Five was the day of the eclipse. It was one of the first warm, no snow days of spring, and we all went outside with our funny glasses and sat on the lawn. We weren't entirely sure what would happen or what we would see, but we were in it together. Yeah, that was a sweet day. And the guilty pleasure, on my birthday, I have to have vanilla cake with vanilla buttercream frosting.
Okay.
That sounds so good.
Number 11. I once had the joy of watching Lisa chase after a kangaroo in an attempt to hug it. She failed.
This is true. That happened.
Okay. All right. And then the guilty pleasure for number 11 is, against all medical advice, I stick Q-tips deep into the ear canal. It's one of the greatest pleasures a human being can experience.
I mean, who would argue with that? I think everybody does that.
Yeah.
Most people don't admit it on a podcast, but we'll see. Number 12. Memorable moment, ice skating with folks at Memorial Park in February of 2024, going round in laps and having a wiggle waggle race, then finishing out the hour with hot chocolate. Guilty pleasure, I cannot drive past a mid-century modern chair on the side of the road without pulling over to pick it up.
Question for this person would be, how many chairs do they own?
Yeah, and what's to feel guilty about? That sounds brilliant. Like, of course you're going to pick up a mid-century modern chair. Yeah, lots of things, in case, Phil, you didn't give the context, maybe you did. The High Five staff is listening to this podcast during a 3-hour drive on the way to our retreat. So we will have lots of things to follow up on after we get the answers revealed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 13. So we're coming up to the halfway point. This was a hard question. I would have to say that there is not one moment, but many around the same theme. Anytime the CCS, which is the Challenge Course Services, and training and team development teams can get together to work on the course and do an in-service day. This is always fun because training team teaches us how to use the elements and adaptations, and the Challenge Course Services team teaches how to build the elements and shows how to use tools and techniques. Yes, I can agree with that. I enjoy those days greatly. And then guilty pleasure is live shows with singing and dancing, and also musicals.
And in celebration of the halfway point, I remembered our typical intro. Welcome to another episode of Myself and Phil, featuring myself and Lisa. Or maybe take that part out. It's still wrong.
No,
but it's close. It's close. Number 14, watching Chuck Bolish, who is a board member, a longtime trainer in the field. Watching Chuck Bolish get quite emotional twice and feeling his commitment to support High Five. The first time, witnessing him dropping off his prop bag, thus ending his time as a trainer. The second time, him telling us he was here for his last board of directors meeting, thus ending his board of directors time for High Five. Yeah, that was just very recently. And the guilty pleasure, binging on the reality survival TV show Alone.
That is a good show.
Yes, it is a good show. The Hunts watch that too.
Okay, number 15. I was practicing solo cutaways and decided to pre-block my belay device before clawing up the tree. I climbed up to the cable, weight checked, and went out on the cable. When it came time to self-lower, I was unable to lower as my ropes were twisted. With some heavy persuasion and elbow grease, I was able to get the rope untangled and self-lowered successfully. That is probably very relatable to most people who have taken a level 2 training at High Five. And then the guilty pleasure is, it says Married at First Sight. I'm assuming that's a TV show.
Such an interesting, this could be a whole other episode about the themes around guilty pleasures being reality TV shows. Let's just make it okay.
And yet those shows are so popular. There are a number of people who feel guilty about watching them but enjoy them.
You know what I think the very best reality TV is, though, Phil? Sports. The original reality TV show.
Yes, right? I agree.
All right, number 16. I've had the chance to go on many outdoor excursions in ways I never would have without work trips. Paddleboarding in the ocean off the coast of Rhode Island, a trip to Acadia before busy season, so we were the only ones there, a hike with an abandoned hotel and an amazing view, a disc golf course with one of our courses right in the middle of one hole. That's cool.
That is cool.
The guilty pleasure, K-pop and J-pop, which means Korean and Japanese pop music. Nonstop bangers, give it a chance. 100%.
That's your daughter's very much into K-pop, right?
Super into K-pop, and she's just getting into J-pop too. Yeah.
I want to know about that course that's in the middle of a disc golf course.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe that's DYS though. Is that in the middle of one?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Number 17, the memorable moment is that I get to use a spider lift. Is that one where it has like legs that move? I don't think I know what a spider lift.
But it sounds cool.
It does sound cool. And then the guilty pleasure is finding good stuff cheap at thrift stores. That's if I had more disposable income, I think that's how I would lose that. I used to love going to antique stores. Okay.
Number 18. Eated loaded nachos for dinner after craving them during a cold and wet work week. And the guilty pleasure is the TV show Charmed.
Okay, I don't know if I've seen that show. I feel it's about witches.
I would assume so.
Okay. Number 19. High five staff gathering up on the Cardinal's Nest. And then the guilty pleasure is Cobra Kai. That's the Karate Kid TV show. It's a good show.
Okay. Number 20. I remember the first all-staff meeting I attended. I didn't say much, but the food was good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And the guilty pleasure, I can't stop watching Antiques Roadshow. I mean, that's pretty wholesome.
That is very wholesome. And I like that show a lot. I used to watch that in England a lot. I don't know if I've watched the American version. Okay, 21. Sledding down the hill on campus with other staff members on a snowy day.
Highly recommend, especially if it's
Both
your
you
birthday.
and I were there for a very memorable one recently. So I'm trying to think who else was there maybe. But and then the guilty pleasure is watching the movie Burlesque. I don't know if I've seen that. All I'm doing is writing a list of the things that I clearly haven't seen and need to see.
I do now know our tagline, but I'm going to stop trying to say it out loud.
Number
22.
We got 3 more left. You should save our tagline for the very end now. Okay.
Oh, because I'm just giving up. But I'm just saying, for the record, I know it in my head.
Okay, great.
Number 22. Watching the EOL staff enter the building with a bunch of PVC pipe and a very high level of excitement around creating a new product to use in the classroom. Yeah. And the guilty pleasure is Jimmy Buffett's music. May he rest in peace.
And then shout out to the product, which I think is probably the cube. Okay, number 23. And this is a longer one, so here we go. I'm thinking of a symposium moment quite a few years ago that sticks in my mind because it was so funny and so very repulsive to me at the same time. We had invited someone from outside High Five to do the keynote, and this person was leading the crowd of 150 people through some activities. It was here that I was introduced to nose jousting. The premise of nose jousting is that everyone puts a circled piece of masking tape, sticky side out, on their nose, and the goal is to capture everyone's tape by approaching a person and then pressing your noses together with the goal of moving away, having kept your own tape and captured the other person's. After listening to the instructions and being handed some masking tape, all I remember hearing was go. So I can't opt out. That would be bad, right? Who in the world would be comfortable in mutually hurling one's face at someone else's face? What am I learning here? And why is everyone else in the room okay with this? These punctuations are called interrobangs, which perfectly defines what was going on in my head. I'm not sure about how my face was playing along. To my great relief, I lost in the first round. It was funny to watch, and I will never play it again.
Now we know that the COVID-19 pandemic started at a High Five symposium.
It's true. It's one of those activities that when you think back, you think, like, why were we ever playing that? The nose jousting is definitely one of those. I love the term interrobang.
Yeah, never heard.
Okay. And then the guilty pleasure is having the car air conditioning on max with the windows down at the same time. I love the hot and cold airs swirling around each other. So wasteful.
But so understandable. I mean, that
I'm very unsure about who this person might be, but I like both of those.
Yeah. Number 24. This is the last one that I will be reading. Enjoy the sound of my voice. A business group once came to High Five for a one-day professional development program. Evidently, there had been a mix-up, quote, back at the office, unquote, about which department was going to come that day. I had received their program goals form in advance and prepared an agenda for that day. It was not until they arrived that I began to realize this was not the department that I had expected and prepared for. I pulled off the day successfully with the same agenda, although I did call a few, quote, audibles periodically. The group was thrilled with the day, and I never let on that I had no idea that they were the ones coming. Phew, it was a close one. Always made me wonder if they knew and never let on.
That's cool.
Guilty pleasure. I have seen the Beatrix Potter movie 3 times, and I like Cher's music.
Okay, and last one. And this will be the last time you hear my voice, except it probably won't. Okay, Five Guys had become a new popular place to eat, but at the time there were not any of these restaurants around Brattleboro. One end of the year job, we finally had the opportunity to take a picture of 5 high five guys at Five Guys. How fun. Bonus point if you can name the job. That's epic. And I've heard that, and I'm not entirely sure who is in that photo, but
I've never heard that story, but does that mean you have to change the score sheet to make room for a bonus point?
sure, I can add the bonus point to the score
There you
sheet for that
go.
one if you can name the job. But yeah, 5 high five guys at Five Guys, that's
pretty awesome.
That's awesome. And then the guilty pleasure of this person is that it is very hard to scroll past the movie Pitch Perfect if it is playing on TV. That and American Idol. Okay, those are the 25. So thank you for listening. Once again, you can always go back to the start if you want to hear these again. You may have to in order to fill out your score sheet. And to those who are heading to the retreat, thank you for listening, and we'll see you when you arrive. Awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Phil.